Most of us like to feel like we belong to something bigger than ourselves, to be part of a group of like-minded people who, in our case anyway, are following a similar growth trajectory. What happens when you choose to be part of a community that is respectful of your process and committed to being their highest and best version of self? Does it have any effect on our spiritual journey? In this episode, we discuss the unexpected impact of community on your momentum, the level of awakening that you can attain, and the surprising lessons you can learn from being in community without the creepiness of something like a cult. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you like this episode, please help us out by hitting the like button. It helps us get the word out to more people. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss our regular new content, click the subscribe button too. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing Connect and Elevate, the power of community.
This is a particularly relevant topic for me because I grew up in the borders of Scotland, and I grew up in a time where the mothers either worked at home because it was a big weaving woolen industry in the borders, or they had to go to work. But you were never inside. I know lots of people say that, but we didn't want to be inside. You know? We were always outside playing, and somebody's mother was always watching us. And before you got home, your mother knew what had happened, right? That was my first realization of community. And all the things that we did in Scotland, like I'd come home from school in the winter time and my mother would be saying, check on Mrs. So-and-so on your way home, knock on the door, make sure she answers, you know, and tell me how she's looking. And every kid was asked to do something like that because they'd get hypothermia in winter or they'd fall asleep in front of the fires and you know, things like that. So I'm growing up and I understand what community is. It's about give and take, looking after each other, watching out for each other. There's also an awful lot of busybody messing in your business. So I think we're not really talking about that today, are we?
No.
I think what we're going to approach or talk about is how community can strengthen your frequency resonance, your ability to render and be in this life in the highest version of yourself.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And what happens when you get people that have this desire come together, whether seen or unseen, right? So from your perspective, because I mean, oftentimes you're here by yourself. And so you have to have a sense of what that community is. Or do you feel it? Like, can you feel? I mean, I'm going to ask a question that hopefully folk in the audience are dying on me asking. Can you feel everybody's frequencies?
Yeah. Do
you know that they're there?
Yeah, I can. And so to answer your question, there were a lot of them there.
There was, sorry.
I was like, whoa, I don't know if I can remember all that, but I'll do my best.
We needed a cup of tea with that one.
I know we did, and a biscuit or something. But so to answer your last question first, yes, I can feel everyone's frequencies. It depends on what I'm doing. So in a group frequency calibration, if the what happens is the mastermind forms, you know, so you've all heard me say at the beginning of a group frequency calibration, I'm waiting for the mastermind to gel, especially if it's it's something a little bit more beginner, you know, it's not a mastermind that's been meeting over and over again with the same people, for example. So for a limitless potential mastermind, once we begin that, because it's the same group of people that meets over a number of times, you guys are already moving together because you've been meeting together, you're masterminding together. So even though you're not physically seeing each other, you don't necessarily know everybody's names, you don't know necessarily what they look like, the momentum of that mastermind is spiraling in the background of your existence, helping to buoy you, and you're contributing to it and it contributes to you. But for example, for people who've not done a GFC ever before, you'll hear me say, especially if it's like at the podcast or like a deep dive, I'm waiting for the mastermind to gel because the higher selves of all of you are coming together into this glorious mix, let's call it. And there's like this other, it's like this dynamic that starts to happen that's a reflection of the whole. And so I can feel the whole of frequencies. You guys, some of you will feel like I'm talking directly to you because I'm picking up on, even though there's like maybe a little handful of you, I'll see a little mastermind is doing this, but you're running the same things together. So it sounds like I'm talking to you because I am, but that's what happens. So I feel mostly the whole, and then sometimes I'll feel the individuals. And then it depends on what's needed in the mastermind at that moment. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I can very much tell that the mastermind is there. And for me, I don't feel it just in the present moment. I feel it through space and time. So the mastermind that gathers live, for example, is one thing. But I'm also, so there's that experience, right, of all of you gathering together live in this moment. And you're all contributing and doing your thing and releasing your distortions and all that awesome stuff. And I'm also aware of the mastermind, like beyond space-time, meaning in the eternal now. So that mastermind isn't limited to the group of people that showed up live. It's everybody who's going to gather in that mastermind over time. It's kind of cool. So I feel all of that, but yes.
I mean, that brings up a whole pile of other questions. I'll try to do it slowly and one at a time. Is there ever a time when you're doing like a GFC?
Yeah.
Because I want to come back to LPM as well, but when you're doing a GFC where there's somebody that doesn't become part of the mastermind, and does it stop you from wanting to do the work, or does it lower the level of the work?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, not it hasn't happened yet. Okay, so I'm not going to say it's impossible, but everybody who joins the mastermind jumps in because they want to be there to do the work, even if it's sort of like in the background, and you know what I mean? Like somebody's listening to it in the background. So for example, it's on in the background and your kids are listening to it, for example. They're still participating. So they are, so far, in my experience, everyone's participated, meaning everybody has wanted to participate. I have only twice so far in doing frequency work been clearly indicated to not work on somebody. Like twice, very specifically. And I 100% respect that. I'm like, okay. If you do not want to receive this, you do not have to. So I don't force.
So you've had that guidance from their higher self?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So meaning, and the way that showed up for me is they either would turn away from me or made a clear indication they did not want to receive. And in that case, I would just be like, okay, well, if you don't want to receive, I'm certainly not going to force you to. So that's only happened twice though. But for everyone else, no, they jump in. And I can feel resistance. That's different, right, to me. Because sometimes what can happen is you have distortion patterns of resistance to whatever is going to happen, for example, right? Because of your ego mind or your conditioning or whatever. So that's different to me than I don't want to join this mastermind at all.
Right.
Right? That to me is different. So I can also sense resistance. And what's really great about the Limitless Potential Mastermind is I know who it is because I know because there's only a limited number of people in the group, and I'm very aware of each of your frequencies and what's happening. So yes, so that's why you'll hear me call out different, like with the Limitless Potential Mastermind, because it's the momentum of the group to help each individual's frequency resonance or to release their distortion patterns. It's really powerful because there's so much momentum, and we are doing work that's individual and collective at the same time. And I can very specifically say, bring your attention here, release this, because for a specific person in the midst of Limitless Potential Mastermind, which is really cool.
All right. So, because I want to make this relatable to why we're saying community. Yeah. Right. So I would like to move to the LPM, because the LPM group is a specific number of people. And they come together every second Sunday at the moment. And they're all there to do the work, for what I understand. They've been doing a lot of work prior to coming to LPM. And then they're committed to being accountable and aware and doing what needs to be done to keep their resonance buoyed. So is it only on the Sunday when they gather that this happens? Or is there such a sense of this mastermind creating a community that when they're away from the Sunday class and they're in their daily life, is that something that can still be tapped into and maintained throughout the next 2 weeks until they meet again?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it does happen. So that it's a funny thing, you know, we think of ourselves doing this work as very individual. And that's what I mean by community. So once you gather in a mastermind, especially with something like the Limitless Potential Mastermind, where you meet consistently and you all see each other on Zoom, you're all aware of who's in your mastermind. So what happens is when you go away from the, time that we spend together, that momentum is still there. So if you want to tap into that momentum, it is possible for you to feel the momentum that we cultivate in LPM to help you to ascend. So even if you're in a bit where it's like a little bit hard for you, for example, because you're struggling with a certain distortion pattern and it's deep and it's heavy and you're like in the thick of, releasing it, you can actively become aware of the momentum of the limitless potential mastermind, and that gives you momentum to move through it. And that's really cool. So, people have said that, I didn't think I could make it through it, but I could feel the momentum of that mastermind. And it's not like the mastermind's like a boogeyman sitting in your corner being like, "Whoa, I'm watching you." It's not like that. It's like the mastermind is there. The momentum is there for you to tap into should you want to.
And from a mind perspective now, and I think we understand what the resonance, the frequency resonance of this mastermind and what its purpose is for either a GFC or deep dive, because you always state what that is at the beginning.
Yeah.
But from a mind perspective, I understand for me with community, if I'm having one of them weeks where everything's hard and I'm moving to victim and poor me. I know I'm meeting with this group. It's like, oh man, I got to step up. I really got to step up. I got to look at myself here. For me, that's where the part of the community comes in.
Yes.
Because when I'm ready to give up on myself, I can't give up on the community.
Exactly.
I've got to have the community knowing that, no, I'm doing my bit too.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever motivates.
Yeah.
For me, that's that sense of where community really kicks in.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And the reverse is when they see me struggling, to hear them share their stories, I've had I don't know if I can say that on camera, but I've had a poo week as well.
Yeah.
I've had one of them weeks. And you feel like, okay, so I'm not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this is part of the journey.
Yes.
And we're going to get through it because if she can, I can.
Yeah, exactly.
So for me, that's where that word community really kicks in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because you don't feel alone.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that the thing that's wonderful about community is it's a reflection of the oneness. That we are part of something greater than ourselves and that we are held in that community in the sense that, as you say, it's like you fall down, there's someone else to pick you up. So for example, we just came back from the Peru retreat at the time of filming of this thing. And someone said what was remarkable about that retreat is that the community that happened as a result of it. It's like, do you need a Kleenex? Do you need a protein bar? Do you need, Imodium? Do you need whatever? Like, I need something. I'm struggling here, and somebody in the community shared.
Yeah.
Because they could, and they had it, and they were willing to give it. So it's similar, whether it's a physical thing, like because you're now on a retreat and experiencing that kind of community. So it's physical, like here I have this to give to you to support you. But also, as importantly, is the frequency resonance. So it's like when you actually do more and more frequency work and you rise in your resonance and you are internally strong, you respect someone else. So you're like, okay, I see you. I respect where you are in your journey and I can see that you're struggling a little bit. But instead of me trying to fix you, because obviously you can't handle it, which is the kind of underlying messaging. So I'm going to instead raise my own frequency resonance so that you can be like, can feel it, be aware of it, know it, be like, okay, wait, there's a different way of me managing my own frequency resonance because I can see it in her or in him. I can see it in them, how they're managing themselves, how they're working with their own resonance, how they are with other people. And that inspires me as the person who's struggling a little bit to see a different way, a different path, a different possibility, to be aware of a higher frequency resonance and then get myself out of where I was before.
Yeah, I saw that a lot in the Peru trip.
Yes.
Yeah, the beautiful dynamics that were unfolding within the group.
Yeah.
And how everybody was transforming. And what I found, people that were like immediately getting sick or something, because they got this support, the very next day they were starting to recover.
Yes.
And it was happening so fast.
It was happening so fast.
I think there's a special phrase for that. I think we've had Dr. Hyman, Mark Hyman, it's such an unfortunate name, but Dr. Mark Hyman uses a phrase, and
it's called the sociogenome.
Yeah.
He's called it, or I don't know if it's his term, but he talks about sociogenomics. And what he talks about is how the impact of community affects how your genes express. So if you are in a relationship that is high stress, in conflict, polarized, it will actually cause the genes that are in you to move into inflammation, or the genes of inflammation to like activate, basically. And so now inflammation is the basis of all disease. All disease is formed by that. So there you go. And that's what's happening inside your body. And if you're in relationship where it's supportive and loving and that type of thing, then the repair genes start to activate and to heal. And to your point, people who were quote unquote getting sick, like literally because of the resonance of that group, they were within hours adapting, shifting, quote unquote healing. You know, and it was amazing to see. And we were all tired because we were moving a lot on that trip, and there was, you know, a lot of stuff going on, both physically and also spiritually for a lot of people. But they moved through it very quickly. And so, to his point, that's what happens when you're in a community, because the path is still our path, you know, like our spiritual journey is ours, meaning only we have the power to bring ourselves through it, to raise ourselves up. So I'm not suggesting that you like lay back on the wonderful, soft, delightful bed of community and not do anything, but it's like it's still your path. And at the same time, when you come together or join with people who are on a similar path, and who want to be their best selves, you have to pull up your own socks and be like, well, if they're being their best selves, I better bring my best self to the table too.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. You can't really lie back and let the community do it for you when you're in a community that is determined to be the best version of themselves. And it's an amazing community to be in. Yeah. I mean, like I say, I came from a community. And I'm in this community, which is quite different. And to know that, especially for me on the Peru trip and the live events that we have, you can be in this community, you all have that same focus, that same desire to be the best version of yourself, to take accountability, to be aware. And when you're in it, you know that when you're having a wobble, you can just sit and be with somebody and entrain to that's the other thing on the frequency resonance that I noticed. I knew intuitively or instinctively, okay, that person is holding their center really strong. That person has their boundaries really well established. That person is spatially referencing. I mean, I just kind of knew it. So I would sit within their space, not pushing into their space. I would just sit in their space and just be quiet and silent and remind myself, oh yeah, that's where it is.
Yeah. Exactly.
And, you know, that person didn't mind me doing that because I wasn't sucking, I wasn't pushing, I wasn't pulling. I just needed to remember.
Exactly.
And I was being accountable.
Exactly.
And for me, the strength of the community, when a community can hold that kind of resonance and focus and accountability, it's phenomenal. And we saw phenomenal things because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it happens in all of our retreats. And I think that's the amazing thing about coming together in person, is that you get to like witness that physically in people, which is such a powerful thing. And the really nice thing is that people start to learn that buoying another up doesn't mean like in like enabling them or like creating codependency, like, oh, they're there. It's more like, I'm going to hold my resonance as me because I believe and I have faith that you can do the same thing. You've just forgotten. So you're just going to entrain to me. You're not going to come into my space. You're not going to push in. You're not going to do anything weird. You're just going to remember by me being me what is possible for you in this moment when you're struggling. And that's an amazing thing because it's so respectful, you know, and it's such a like a conviction in a way of in another person, in their ability to like adapt and to pivot and to pull themselves up. You know, I'm not suggesting there isn't power in being present for somebody and witnessing and holding, you know what I mean? That for them, because there is. But I don't mean this like, oh, they're there. I'm going to pat you on the head and like, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm going to try and rescue
you. Or create more codependency. That's not a powerful form of community. It's actually, when I've seen people do that, and it actually weakens the community.
It's codependent as well, isn't it? When somebody's constantly rescuing or needing to be rescued. Where's the individual empowerment? There's an imbalance straight away.
Agreed.
So I guess coming back to the value of the community and then the mastermind that is a product of that.
Yeah.
Frequency resonance.
Yeah.
The value of that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's huge. And, we've talked a lot just now about live retreats, but this
Yeah.
happens even if it's online,
Mm-hmm.
because for some of you, it can feel very lonely,
Mm-hmm.
to be doing this work on your own. You're like, am I the only one who's experiencing this?
Mm-hmm.
Am I the only one having a hard time? Am I the only one who's tired? And it's really a relief to know it's like, no, you're not. I mean, not everybody in the group is,
Yeah.
but some people are.
Yeah.
And some people are. That's the amazing thing about, I didn't quite finish my thought there, but the thing about community is that we're different.
Yeah.
So there are people there who have strengths where you're weak, and you have strengths where they're weak.
Yeah.
And so what's amazing is whenever we can come together in community, whether you see the person or you don't see the person, it's really about that power of like, okay, well, I don't have to be strong everywhere. I'm human. So obviously I'm not going to be strong everywhere, but you have strengths that are opposite to mine or different from mine or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the momentum of us coming together for really the purpose of becoming more aware of our connection to pure source and to becoming our best version of ourselves. And the best version of ourselves is really changing. It's like becoming truly more limitless. So we had this idea of like what the limitless is, even, like being in limitless is like this kind of cool catchphrase thingy in personal development and spiritual development. But a lot of that is informed by distortion of like what it is that we feel like we're lacking.
Yeah.
So therefore we want more of something else because it comes from lack. It actually doesn't come from a place of empowerment. But as you become higher in your resonance and you become internally stronger, you're like, what is truly possible really opens because it's not out of lack, you see.
Yep.
It comes out of a place of like curiosity and wonder and like what can it be, So I think that my sense when I see the masterminds that come together and the community that's developing in Spherical Luminosity, it's really amazing for me to witness because I didn't intend to create it. It's not like, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not like I set out, I don't know, whenever it was, a few years ago, and we're like, okay, one of the checklist things it's gonna happen at Spherical Luminosity is community. But it is this wonderful thing that's happened because it is a place where people really want to be their best selves.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? And it's okay that you're having a human moment and are not your best self. Like, what is your best self right now? I mean, it may not be as glorious as it was 2 weeks ago, or maybe it won't be as glorious as it's going to be in 2 months. But now, what is your best self? And can you bring your best self and be your best self as, like, to the best of your ability in this moment?
Yeah, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like when you have that kind of community, it feels not only less lonely, but like I said, more and more connected. Not just connected with other people, but they're reflecting to you your connection to pure source.
Yeah.
Constantly. Remember, and it's this lovely thing that's happening, which can really, I think in part, that is what creates the speed in the mastermind. Because it's this focus on this awareness of what it is already there that we are amplifying, which is our awareness of our connection to pure source. It's always there. It's infinitely there. It's always been there. You don't have to do anything like spectacularly special for it to be there, And that is in part why I asked that question. And as the community builds and as everyone remembers that, the ripple effect of that into the community buoys frequency resonance. That's what happens as a direct result of that, which is amazing. And then more and more people get to entrain to that.
Yeah. I think it is vital and important that we understand that even though we're not in the same room as each other, it doesn't really matter because we're all, like you say, it's all frequency.
Yeah.
So if we're all joined in together, like for one mastermind, for a GFC, or for Living Your Brilliance, then it is understanding that connection to pure source and that we've all in that moment, or the moments to come, decided that, okay, I want to remember. I want to remember my connection to pure source.
Yeah.
And these people, whether they're on this call with me now, are wanting to remember that now too. Or these people that are coming, they've chosen to, hey, what's this? I want to remember my connection too. And it's like, my brothers and sisters are here.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally awesome. And it's this remembering of this connection. I know it sounds like or an awareness of the connection. It sounds almost like easy or simple. But it's so easy for us to forget, you know? So it's like, it sounds like an easy thing, but like in the middle of your day, when you're busy and things are going to hell in a handbasket in your own way in your life, or you're just really stressed and there's a lot going on, or something's happening.
Just forget.
You just forget.
You just become so 100% human with the mind machinations.
Yeah.
You forget there's another realm
Yeah.
that's within.
Yes, exactly. And the magnificence of you as consciousness, as infinite indestructible consciousness, the magnificence of you in your humanness, which is hard to remember if you're not connected to that higher level order of like who you are as consciousness, gets kind of mucky, you know, otherwise.
Yeah.
So all of that when you come into community with everyone with that awareness on different levels, wherever they are in that moment, it helps you to remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And coming back to your point, I think for me personally, it helps me to remember the gloriousness of humanness.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
Even with all its crunchies and munchies, you know, the gloriousness of humanness. And it's, when you're in a community, you get to see all flavors and tastes, and it's kind of like, whoa, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's being human.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny. What's interesting is that, you know, in community, you can see examples of ways that you don't want to be. Because you're like, wow, that person is really fill in the blank, you know? And you can think to yourself, all right, that's what they're choosing. I do that too, to some degree. Maybe not to the same extent that this person is doing it, but okay, I do that.
Yeah, if you can recognize it, apparently, according to all the therapists out there, it means that you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And so to be like, okay, well, is there a part of me that's still doing that? And is that a distortion I need to release?
Yeah.
Am I triggered by that? Or can I just be with it and be like, okay, this is where this person is. So even in the people who are a little challenging, even they in community can offer, let's say, lessons,
or an opportunity
to see it in yourself, and also to be like, okay, well, that's the impact. Like, I can see the ripple effect of that behavior or that resonance, that vibrational level in the world, not only on the person, because I can see it in them, but I can also see it in the people around them.
Impacts. Yeah.
So, okay, so if I choose a version of that for myself, this is what that impact looks like, and do I really want to be that?
Yeah. Like you say, there are many gifts of being in community.
Yeah.
And in particular, this one's my favorite, but anyway.
Mine too.
I think it's really great that you take the time your personal time now, to take the time to talk through these topics, because they're critical.
Thanks.
And I think sometimes we overlook them too easily. So I'm really appreciative of the time that you take and spend putting into these podcasts. I can't thank you enough for that.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for coming too, because it's a lot more fun when you're here. So thanks. And for those of you who want to have more of a sense of community, then I highly recommend that you listen to the group frequency calibration meditation that's associated with this episode, when you can start to feel more of that oneness. We're about to start the group frequency calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and where change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear to the right, or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.